Love is alive in the space between us. Right now. Oh, there's a lot of love here. Right there. Here it is. Invisible. Invisible. Joy is alive in the space between us. Goodness, creativity, humor, all kinds of things that we take for granted. Would you agree? Yes. Sometimes we forget that this invisible realm, Charles Fillmore used to call it the ethers, is full. It's not empty. Now, it appears empty. It's full. And it's full of the things you and I are seeking. Now, maybe not a car, or maybe not the perfect condo. What it is filled with is intangible, non-physical energy. And that energy is awaiting our ability to transform it. Yahoo? Amen? Woohoo! All right. That space, that energy, whatever words you call it, the woo, whatever you call it, the intangible is waiting for co-creation, is waiting to be formed and manifested in desires and dreams, to be created, to do good in the world. And it's our responsibility. Anyone else here just look over your shoulder? Okay, go ahead. Go in front of me. You do it. Anyone else waiting for them to do it? Come on. How many of us are now come on, just come on. I'm too old. Oh, I'm a woman. I'm too short. I'm too blah, blah, blah. The power of creativity, the power to manifest the energy in the invisible world is up to us. Dang. Wish it was someone else's job. It is my job. And that's why I'm here. And that's why you're here. And that's why groups all over the planet join together, manifesting spiritual energy, moving throughout the planet, using different words, different music, different rituals, different ways of honoring spiritual beings and teachers. However, the core of creating peace in the world is up to all of us. And every world religion, I don't know, when I went to the Parliament of Religion, they had, this was 6 years ago, we were in a huge convention center in Toronto, Canada. And we had to walk down this long, long, long bridge to connect from the hotel to the convention center. And that whole bridge was covered with the golden rule in at least 15 different spiritual paths. The golden rule is in every spiritual path. So that means we're all on the same path. We just use different rituals, different songs, different ways. Some of us bow, some of us kneel. Many different religions have prayer beads. Many people sit in the silence. Many people chant. Many people sing. One Spirit, one God. So we are studying the book, The 5 Levels of Attachment. Now, when I first read that, I went, ooh, really? I have that many attachments? Really? Oh, yes, and probably 20 more. So 5 levels of attachment is understanding what we are holding on to that keeps us from transformation. Now, are you interested in knowing that? Yeah. Okay, 3 or 4, that's good. We'll start there. So in knowing what is blocking my transformation, in knowing what is keeping me, and Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. used this word, stuck. What's keeping me stuck in my old behaviors, in my old thoughts, and my old reactions to life? Anyone being honest about being stuck? Okay. So we talked about the first 3 attachments last week. I'm going to talk about 2 more. And then the rest of the series, we're going to learn how to weave those together and transform them. Today, I'm talking about internalization, how we internalize the way we respond to the world. So it's an inside job. So the inside job is acceptance and judgment. Constantly. I accept the TV show. I judge the TV show. I accept you. I judge you. I accept that food. I judge that. We accept and judge. And Miguel Ruiz Jr. calls that the narrative in here. The talk. Self-talk. Yeah, there's 3 of us over here. These people don't have self-talk, I guess. Anyway, that self-talk of, and it's internalized. We're not speaking it. We're thinking it. And it's a narrative that we have created. And it's a narrative that goes on and on and on and on. I don't like that person because they do that. I don't like that because they say that, and I don't like that. Or I accept that. I like that. That's good. I align with that. So we do this. Reject and accept. Anyone be honest enough to say, you do that continually. I accept and I reject. And a lot of times it's unconscious. We don't even know we're doing it. It's a narrative that just blah, 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 blah. You know, what was that doll? Chatty Cathy. You turned her on and she just talk. Well, that is that narrative in here that is constantly internalizing between acceptance and rejection. Pull it in, shove it out. Pull it in, shove it out. Yes? I'm going to go down here. Okay, now we're real. Anyone willing to not share the particulars, but be willing to breathe into the things that you truly accept, that you pull into you. It might be family, it might be unity, it might be nature, it might be your work. So just think of the things that you pull in, that you have a narrative about, that you accept. Okay, great. And then begin to think of those things you reject.
Amen.
Now she gets the gold star. So that feeling of accepting and rejecting in our own mind before it even happens. Now, we also do that with judgment of people. Food, we judge food. I'm driving down the road, I'm looking at cars. We judge. When I was growing up, I grew up in St. Louis, and there was 2 car factories. There was Ford and Chevy. And the kids in my school would fight, hit each other, because one father worked at Chevy and one worked at Ford, and they were constantly fighting over what was right. So what is it we fight over? What is it we want to say, that's wrong? Now, that's a small thing. I always use examples that are like this, but we're expanding those examples. Do we do that by skin color? Do we do that by language? Do we do that by the way people dress? Do we do that like this? And we begin to do, last week I talked a little bit about good and bad and right and wrong. We slip. We go, oh, I don't like that. That's not good, or that's bad. Then we go very quickly into right and wrong. Then we very quickly go into judgment. And then that leads to fear. For some reason, this example came up to me this morning about I remember being a teenager and my grandmother staying at our house for a few weeks. And my grandmother used the N word. And I went and said, Dad, Grandma used the N word. Now, my dad, I'd never heard my dad say anything but, yes, Mom. Yes, Mom. Yes, Mom. And my dad said, we don't say that word in this house. And if you ever say it again, I'll take you home. Now, he drew a line. How often do we draw a line about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable? Or do we just let it go by? Now, there's a right way and wrong way to do that. But how often do we do that in a caring way, in a loving way? And it's hard. Would you say that's hard? I'd say that's hard. Now, I've had so many times in my life where I thought I didn't like this person, and you know what? I made that up. I made up why I didn't like that person. That is internalization. So I'm sure I've told you a little bit about Dr. Levy. She was my supervisor when I was teaching in a school that was a pilot school. It was an honor to teach there. However, you got supervised. And Dr. Levy and I had actually been friends. I went away and worked in another state, and she got her doctorate. So now she was the doctor, and she was my supervisor. And she would walk in, and I had little ones, and I was teaching kids who were borderline having difficulties, not being able to pass the tests. And so I was trying all kinds of creative things. And she'd come in the winter, she had a cape. So she'd come in like this. And she'd just sit down and watch me. And she never said a word. And then she would leave. Now, she did this like every 2 weeks. Never said a word. Never said you're doing good. Never said you're doing bad. Not a word. So where did my internalization go? This woman hates me. I'm going to fail. I'm going to be thrown out of this program. What on earth? Because I have a negative narrative in here. I know none of you have a negative narrative. I know that's true. But I had, I was 30. I had a negative narrative in here. Now, I worked for that woman for 2 years. I never got a letter. I never got a condemnation or a Yahoo letter. Now, at the end of those 2 years, I had been accepted into ministerial school. I was getting ready to move from St. Louis to Kansas City. I went into the home office where all the doctorates worked, PhDs, superintendent, and I went in to say goodbye to a couple people, and there was Millie Levy's office. Oh, I want to say goodbye to you. And I went, I didn't know you were leaving. Oh, I heard. You will be a great minister. Huh? I have a gift for you. Huh? You were one of the best teachers in the pilot program. Huh? The narrative was wrong. The narrative was wrong. How often we create a voice of negative words, thoughts, energy out of nothing. Now, what I created that out of was old habits and negative energy that I'd grown up with. A lot of this and not this. So just think back in your life, how often do you create a negative narrative, and how often do you create a positive narrative? And is it possible that you could shift some of that negative narrative? Because it's made up. It's made up. You created it. No one wrote that script but you. So I can change it. I can change my script. I cannot change yours. And what happens when we come together in a job or a relationship or a spiritual community? I have my script, you have yours, and here we go. I'm interpreting through my narrative, you're interpreting through your narrative, and we've got soup. How often does this happen in a marriage? Often, we could say. Or in a job, or in a spiritual community. I have this narrative I've created, I've internalized, and here I am, and you have yours, and they don't really coalesce. We have to work at that. We have to understand each other. We have to be have empathy that this, I came from here, you came from there, I experienced that, you experienced that. How do we find that common ground? That's called listening to the narrative, changing the narrative. Changing the narrative is transformation. It really is. And I've had the opportunity over and over, I'll say, work on it. I'll never say I've arrived, but I have worked on it. And I watch myself, when I opened this book just a month ago, and there it was, self-criticism. I have a narrative of self-criticism I could get a Golden Globe for. I mean, I'm a professional at self-criticism. Now, I know none of you have that perchance, but I could win an award for self-criticism. Now, you might not guess that by the way I stand up here and talk, but in here, she's a talking. So the ability to say, shh, thank you very much for sharing. I put them on the top shelf in a box with a lock on it. That's what I'm doing. I visualize that sometimes. How do we stop the negative narrative that we have created? No one else created that. It's called internalization. It's true for all of us. And how do I create that positive reinforcement for who I am? Now, the last attachment is about, he uses the word fascism, but it is the strongest judgment you can think of, where there is only disrespect for a person, for a situation, for a relationship. Now, many of us have been in relationships where there was no respect. And we know what that feels like. And how we gain respect is not by changing that person, dang it, dang it, dang it, is by changing myself and my willingness to accept that relationship and that kind of give and take. Now, I have found myself in what I would call the circle of relationships, and I have played both parts. I've been the victim and the victor. Come on. How many of you done that? How many of you been the victim and the victor? Yeah. I was the best and I was the worst. I've played both parts. And I stand back and watch how universally we do it. Universally. Now, we might have done it as a child or as a student or as someone working for someone, but we all get a turn at being a victim or a victor. And that's part of the narrative. The narrative is the one who decides, am I a victim? Oh, are you sure about that? I'm sure it's him or her. No. It's where we place ourselves in the story. Now, this is spiritual work. This is psychology also. But this is spiritual work because we're looking at how do we, the golden rule, bless, see, live with each other equally. Equally. When I was, after I'd just become a widow, and my daughter was 13, my second husband had died, my daughter was 13. Now, any of you that had a 13-year-old girl, you know what I'm saying. Oh, our prayers are with you. So my 13-year-old, who is 51, and we went to her house for dinner last night, and she made seafood chowder, and she's the best. On this particular day, my 13-year-old said, I'm going to Sarah's house, and I'm going to spend the weekend. I went, no, you're not. Yes, I am. Okay. And she started to raise her voice. Don't you raise your voice. I could hear my father. Don't you raise your voice. Here it came. And then, the crescendo started to rise. And I started to yell at her. This isn't my style. I'm just saying. I started to yell and scream. Well, it ended up in disaster. She went on the weekend with Sarah. You know that. And so I was in counseling at that point, and I took this to the counselor. And she said to me, oh, you were feeling vulnerable. Oh, you were feeling vulnerable. Never even ever thought of that. You didn't know how to handle it, so you reverted to old behavior. And I started to cry. She said, when that happens again, take a moment, say, let's take 10 minutes apart, walk away, and take care of yourself. So you don't have to get angry. Listen to your own inner feelings. Be vulnerable with yourself. And come back ready to find common ground. Now, I paid $10,000 for that information. I just want you to know I spent a lot of money on therapy, and it works. And it works. Because normally when we are fighting back, we are feeling vulnerable. Normally when we say things we don't want to say, it's because we feel vulnerable. We feel exposed, and we don't know how to handle it. So I would just like to support you and me and this ministry, because this happens in all kinds of groups. We say things we didn't mean to say. We look at things in a different way that maybe we could be willing to shift on. And the disrespect in our world today is so prevalent. Why aren't we the first ones to go, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Even if I don't agree. Even if someone feels threatening to me. Even if it feels uncomfortable. I don't want to go there. I want to have respect for myself. For myself. I don't want to engage in negative energy. I want to honor the spirit in me and the spirit in you. I'm feeling vulnerable right now. I shared a really deep story with you. So let's close our eyes. If you have anything in your lap, set it on the floor. Wiggle around in that chair. I like to shrug my shoulders. Whoa, just let the world go. Let it go. Anything I carried in here today is in a different place in my life. I see it differently. I carry it differently. I am on a spiritual journey. Saying that in your own words to yourself. I am on a spiritual journey. I am growing. I am knowing. The light in me guides me everywhere I go. And every day I recommit to listening and not reacting. Every day I recommit to see the world as a place of peace. And in this moment, if you feel comfortable taking a look at that negative self-talk and allowing your love to just bless it and let it move out of your narrative. We have come together today to learn, to grow, and to be the light in the world. If you feel comfortable putting your hand on your heart or opening your hand and saying to yourself, I am the light of the world. It's true of every one of us. Millions and billions of souls. When we remember who we are the light of the world. I am the light of the world. Few moments of silence as we say that to ourselves. I am the light of the world. And so it is. It is done. Amen. Amen. I support you this week as you begin to listen to that narrative. Now, I'm a person who writes things down. I journal. You might walk a trail. Just be willing to hear the negative talk. And then bless it and release it. Bless it and release. And so it is. Amen. Amen.